Is there like a sinless way to masturbate?
Do good people who aren't Christians go to hell?
Your view on the LGBTQ community.
Is this really like the word of God, or is it just some guys who at one point wrote down something and said, this is now my teaching, you should follow this?
Bros, I'm just gonna offer a perspective. I don't know where this is going. Seriously.
Okay, so it's been a really long time since we've done a religious episode. Today we're going to be talking about Christianity. So please welcome Pastor Raymond.
Hey, welcome!
Hi, everybody.
Why talk to pastor and you bring your guns?
No, so actually, right, I wore another t-shirt but too tight, then I feel paiseh. Then I only have a singlet, so I changed.
I see.
Okay, wow, now I shy. Before we begin, maybe I can introduce him a little bit more. Pastor Raymond was previously doing law.
Yes, I was.
As a prosecutor. And now you've been a pastor for 14 years already. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened there?
Yeah, so I was trained as a lawyer, and then I did a bit of private practice, but not too happy. Then I joined public service. Then I was there for 11 years. Then after that, this thing called God's call, and then I just, became a pastor.
I feel like it'll be interesting for the audiences to know a little bit about the cast members, like religious, like whether you are religious or not. Like, what's your background? Yeah. So, like, Raja, we have no idea.
Oh, you know, so it's quite interesting because I was born into a Hindu family.
Okay.
Then after my dad died, my mom found faith in the Presbyterian church. So she became Christian. And then I grew up studying in a Catholic school.
Wow.
And then I have like tons, and like a lot of my friends are Muslim. So I honestly have exposure to a lot of faith. And then at this point, faith is not a gift that's been given to me. So I don't know what to believe in or what is right and what is not. But I know in my mind.
Are you closer to God don't exist, or
I
you
believe
don't know which God to choose?
I believe God exists. I just don't believe in putting labels and names and following books and stuff like that. But I believe there's a high power, there's a God.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. I just label it.
Agnostic-ish.
Fair.
Ish, yeah.
John?
Fair. I'm Catholic. I was born Taoist, and then I think there was a period where my family also explored faith. Like, so went to different, like this Japanese Buddhism, and then something about that faith, that particular community, not the faith, the community of the faith member kind of spooked us a little bit. Then my mom had a vision of Mother Mary, and then my whole family converted to
Wait, she had a vision even...
Dude, but the vision, like, the story, like, weird though. She was driving my sisters to school. She was driving, and then she had a vision of Mother Mary appear. Then she swerved the car. Like,
Oh no.
As in, like, just Mother Mary appeared.
I don't know how, but I think I was very young, right? So also, this happened maybe like 30 years ago already.
Okay.
So also probably murky my mom's memory also. And so she went, eventually everything was fine and dropped my sister off and everything. And eventually she went on a search on who is this lady she saw. And then because we were Buddhist, so we just thought Guan Yin lah. Right, like the vibe, yeah. But she just feel like this different outfit is like not the same. Until she spoke to one of her friends, and her friend brought her to Holy Trinity Church, and then she looked at the statue of Mother Mary and she said, this one.
So that means upon the point where she saw that vision, she had never had exposure to like the religion at all.
Oh.
Yeah.
She like never even see a picture of Mother Mary.
Maybe lah, I guess. My sister studied in a Catholic convent ma. So probably would have seen before
Got it,
lah.
got it.
Like the Mother Mary in the toast, like the people. You've heard of that one, right? Yeah.
It's Jesus lah, usually.
Was it?
It's Jesus.
That was
also, like in the
quite a few of
song.
those. Anyway.
So my background is I was born in a Christian family, went to a Catholic school for 10 years. I've been baptized 3 times. I've attempted to...
You wasted the church's resource.
I don't know what is wrong. I don't know why the water don't work. But I tried for a very long time in my youth to pursue religion for various reasons, right? For family, for myself, for friends and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, I just felt it was not for me. Like at the last baptism, right? Like I really try, like I talk to everybody, talk to the pastor of the church, all that kind of stuff, right? And try to understand like what is it that I'm missing? Because the entire time that I'm there, it just feels like empty. It feels like a social thing rather than a spiritual experience. And that whole spiritual component was lacking for me. Yeah, so then after that last baptism, then like a few weeks later, then I was like, I'm out.
Oh, like you get baptized first, then you buy.
No, because I was like, that's my last ditch attempt.
Right. Oh, like you really
Yeah,
want
so I
to...
go through like a baptism course again, then I
So
go
when
through
somebody
everything.
asks you, are you baptized? Like, so like this, like after you've been baptized and then the church asks you, are you baptized? Then you never just say yes.
No, because I can't remember.
Then you samula again.
No, because I think the first time was not voluntary. The first time was like as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, then the second one, I don't know what happened. Yeah.
And then 3 times.
Yeah, then the third one was like, no, finally I'm doing it of my own like volition or whatever, right?
Okay.
Then like, maybe hopefully it will work,
Right.
Yeah. Then
Must do the 4th time because plus minus.
It was like that all the way. Then after that, I just stepped away completely.
So I was born into a Christian family. I would say I identify as a Christian, but I haven't gone to church in a long time. Yeah. I feel like I'm sinning in front of
No, but now your skin burning or not in his presence.
I feel like now I'm at church, but at a like conference or something. But yeah, I have not been to church for a long time because I felt like I didn't really connect there. I felt very out of place at my church. I felt every week when I go, right, I feel like I love God, okay? But every time I go, I feel like I'm at a freshman orientation every week. Like I have to like reintroduce myself. Or I'm damn introverted. Then in church, right, if you're a bit like falling off the wagon or like don't seem that interested, they were like, some elders were like, hey, go talk to her, that kind of feeling. So I felt like people were talking to me, right? Because they know like I alone sitting at some corner, right? To like ask me like, hey Alison, like when did I see you last week? That kind of thing. Then I felt a bit like pressurized. I always like awkward at church. I don't know. Like, you know, they ask you like, raise your hands or something.
Oh, I can know that also.
Then I feel like every time I want to raise, right?
Yeah.
I feel like auntie is gonna come to me after worship and say like, hey, Alison, just now you raise your hand, very good, that kind of thing. Then I'm like,
But okay, like that.
no, but I don't want. Like, I don't want them to comment on what I do. Like every time the service ends, right, I'll faster hide in the toilet. I do like the worship part. It's just like worship part. I wish I can like, okay, bye. Then I go home, right? But then like need that kind of like fellowship element. So that's where I felt a bit uncomfortable.
You can't vibe with that.
Yeah. So after my mom passed, right, then I didn't go back. I feel like now my relationship with God is kind of like individual.
The one time, right, I went to a Christian church, which, okay, I tell you, I love Christian church compared to like Catholic church, right? One of the key things I admire about the Christian faith, at least the one that I went to, the song's damn good. Not that I frequent it, but the one time I've been, right, they tell to close our eyes and after like put your hands up, which I did. And then I remember after the song end, right, they will note who put the hands up and then the regulars never put their hands up. So then they know that I knew blood. Then they asked me to go on stage, altar stage, and then like they'll give us a blessing and all that stuff. Then after that they try and like recruit us lah. Which that one to me was like, oof. Then that was my last time at a Christian church.
I apologize for our enthusiasm.
No, but I understand. We are called to evangelize.
I know. But sometimes the intentions are there, but the methods are just like,
Not for everyone.
Not for everyone.
I'm sure some people appreciate it.
And so that's why the Protestant church or the Christian church is very varied lah. Honestly, you go for different churches, you may get a different experience. And it's really to find that space that you would really feel that you're able to grow and find true community lah.
I wanted to ask about like, is this normal? Okay, because when I went to church when I was younger, there were some things, right, were told to me that I don't know, like, is it God driven or like human driven? For example, there was one time, right, Teletubbies were a thing, and then suddenly someone say, who's an elder, say like Teletubbies are like satanic. So all the kids, right, including myself, I love Po the most, the red color one.
Everybody loves
I had to bring my pole, right? And then we started tearing the off the, like we all like started cutting our Teletubby. Then I a bit
Wow.
Cause like we heard some story about the Teletubby come alive at night, then they like Teletubbies possessed is a monster ma. So we
Your
cut
church made you do that, or is like what?
No, it's like no, it's not like the pastor say everybody bring your Teletubbies. It's like the people like, you know, after
Cell group.
something like that. So we all brought our Teletubbies, right? Then I remember as a kid, I just look at the dustbin, right? Then I see my pole, the fluff coming out to see whether the inside got some like talisman or like,
Right.
you know, then don't have, then I like, but I feel like I also cannot keep ready because they say like the demonic and all. There was one time also they say like all the kids will be like, cannot watch Pokémon, cannot watch any DG monster, anything monster have in the name.
I heard that also.
Then,
I remember.
Harry Potter bad. I never watched Harry Potter until I
my
like
gosh.
maybe 18 that kind.
Right.
Because they say it's like witch and wizards. Like I don't know whether it's a Singaporean thing or like
Or you all went for conference in like ASEAN.
No.
There's a schism on this also.
I don't think it's like a uniform belief or practice lah for all churches to hold this position that these things are necessarily demonic. Some people tend to react to these things because they think that as long as you hold them, you're having these demonic influences in your life. Some churches don't hold that belief lah. I mean, we feel that God is above all that. This is cultural. It's a part of the world's culture, and I think there is a certain way where we interact with culture, but as long as you're not idolizing it, you're not like making a god out of it, you know, it really has got no impact on you unless you choose to give it impact.
Do you believe in like demonic influence and like activities and stuff?
I do. I personally do, because I've encountered people with demon possession before.
What's that like?
Their eyes roll. Literally, they're strong. They wail. They cry. They're out of control.
The voice like different, like someone else?
Some can be like a different voice. So it's my personal experience, and I was involved in what we call deliverance ministry, where we deliver the demon out.
Like exorcism.
I mean, it's one way of calling it, but we call it deliverance.
Right.
And so it's a real thing. This whole spiritual demonic sphere I believe it's real. Yeah.
You are in the ministry. of deliverance.
I will do the ministry of deliverance if necessary. Yeah. And I have been involved in the ministry of deliverance in my own journey as a Christian when I was serving before I became a pastor.
Right.
Okay.
Got training one or not? This kind of thing. Because
Yes,
like if really
yes,
you just try and
yes,
follow a
yes.
book, right? Then the day the bar the same
No,
time come out, then you just like,
there
whoa.
is training. There is training.
Like
there is training.
Constantine, that kind of.
Like,
Deliver us from evil.
A lot of things is not as complicated as you think. Sometimes you just have to gently command with whatever. It's just be quiet. My faith, I believe, we come on the authority of someone who is almighty. Are you frightened? Of course you are frightened, lah. You know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you don't come on the authority. In
But
your faith,
right.
Now that you're a pastor, right? If let's say there's something else in my house that I call you, right? Like it would kill me, right? If you come in frightened. Like I need you to pretend. I need you to pretend that you are a Ghostbuster in a day. You know what I mean? Like, okay, which one? I got this. Okay, what's the name?
yeah.
Who? You know, like I need to command the room.
Yeah, of course, of course. So there are some of us who are trained and also very gifted in this area. Okay, who will do.
How does one know they're gifted in it? Like how many they must kena?
It's not like you don't have to kena lah, but sometimes there are dedicated ministries to do this in and out.
Right.
And there are pastors who do this a lot more than others. And so there are ministries that you can turn to where the experience, helps.
Wait, how frequently does this happen?
Depends on if you are in a ministry, you get it all the time, right?
No, I know, but like, let's say just with your church alone, like how frequently do you hear of these?
Okay,
like,
it doesn't happen very
demonic
often
encounter?
in the church that I'm pastoring now. It
Right,
doesn't
right,
happen
right,
often.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Let's say you like someone says, I need your help, right? Like there's this, I think something's happening in my house to this person. How do you differentiate that between just like a clinical representation of like mania or like just like medically, like it explains it? You know, there's some conditions that can make people
Like
lose their mind.
schizophrenia or something like that, yeah.
And how do you differentiate that between a spiritual, possession or otherworldly?
Great question, bro. So I think when we enter in, we assess it. It's a holistic assessment. So you go in, you can pray, but we identify symptoms like schizophrenia and their repeated patterns. Then we refer. We refer to a medical route. So it's not just like one way. It's like multiple ways because we believe that God heals in different ways. God heals through medicine. God heals through counseling. God heals through deliverance. But it's a holistic approach.
Right.
To helping someone who is struggling.
From your beliefs, where do these demons come from and what are they?
I mean, my faith, I believe that there is a spiritual world and the evil one, which is Satan, commands his demons, which is really meant to disrupt, to lead people away from God or to lead people away in the ways of the world. So I believe in that dimension and it can show up in different ways.
And these demons are like created by...
Like they are the undead.
No.
Like they are
Bro, you basing this whole thing on Dota or what?
No, because I really don't understand, man. Like, are they like the spirits that left this earth and then they like unresolved problem or
Okay.
They are the fallen angels.
fallen angels?
So the Bible tells us that Satan took with him, I think, a third to...
So Lucifer took.
Yeah,
Right.
that will now become the basis of the demons that will come in.
So they opposition lah.
Come on,
Right? They never form two-thirds majority.
Okay, so on the topic of like bad stuff, right?
What?
Another question, like the demons or these,
yeah.
Another question we have is masturbation a sin? Asking for a friend.
I think it's what gets into the masturbation that is potentially the sinful thing. Because in masturbation, right, when you go for that, right, your mind is into sexual things. You get the desire aroused and then to finish the process, whatever. That itself can be the root cause of when you are objectifying someone, you may be fantasizing in a wrong manner.
Is the correct way to fantasize?
Is there a right way?
Or like, is there like a seamless way to masturbate?
If John masturbate, he think of his wife only in a not objectifying way, like he just love her. You know?
But I mean, sex is, it's not that deep, what, you know what I mean? Like even if I watch porn, it's not that deep, you know? But is it that deep?
It probably is though. Like you think about the harmful effects of pornography consumption and all this kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Like it is actually that deep.
So what if it's the same video? Why if you masturbate to like the video of yourself and your wife, and it's purely due to like her scheduling? Maybe I night shift. Maybe like, you know, I just don't get to see my wife, and then we film content in the weekends, right? I'll just use that content like.
And then you're masturbating to the love that you're seeing on screen.
No, but it's not that deep. You know what I mean?
So it comes back
Bro,
to
just
just
gonna offer a
content.
perspective, okay? I don't know where it's going. Seriously.
please.
Sex as a design of God, right, is when both parties are available to each other and love each other and really commit to each other in a loving relationship. So masturbation is that platform where you can no need commit, No need to be available. Pleasurize yourself, in different ways. Live out the fullest of your fantasies. Use the porn to derive the pleasure, pleasure, right? Because porn always sometimes
The
ends in
stimulus
masturbation.
more like
Stimulus and that itself is the root of the issue lah. And so I'm offering a perspective because you can say whatever you want about it, but at least from a design point of view, you want to have sex with your spouse and she says, I'm not ready tonight because I'm really very tired. Are you prepared to say, I'm going to go and watch a video of you then?
No, is that wrong? Wait.
No, a bit creepy.
What? The wife say, go. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Leave me alone.
So in a very, very me-centered world, right? Where it's about me, what I want, and that itself is the genesis of that.
It's damn complicated. So I'm trying to Google this, right? So
What on earth?
So watching more say watch porn now,
No,
bro.
so it basically explains how lust is problematic when it is used as a primary coping mechanism for underlying emotional needs or when it leads to harmful behaviors or relationships. Yet, it is a natural sexual desire is part of the human experience. So, it's...
Life's supposed
How
to
do
be pain
you-
is what I'm reading. Can I ask you some point blank questions about the faith? Do all Christians go to heaven?
My honest answer, and it's not a cop-out answer, is I really don't know, bro.
No, I respect that. I respect that.
I really don't. I wish I could say that, but I don't know.
But according to the theology of your faith,
Well, Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So anyone who calls himself a Christian should really have a living relationship with God. It's not just a label. It's easy to have labels today,
Yeah.
but it's who you really are and your integrity and with the God. And so it's more than just that pious work that you do, It's really your personal faith in God. And truth be told, only God knows lah. And our work is just to help people encounter God, and God does the transformation, and that person has the responsibility to walk with God lah. So ultimately, whether all Christians, from a theological point of view, we believe that as long as you believe in Christ, you will. But as to eventually who gets there,
also like the level and tiers of belief, right? The belief of existence to believing to the point where you give yourself fully.
absolutely, because your belief can be right here, but your lifestyle is right there.
Yeah.
Right. You can profess one thing and yet do another thing. It's that consistency, that integrity, that relationship with this God that matters lah.
I'm sure you have this question a lot, especially to like people that are trying to explore the faith, right? That if God exists, why is there suffering? Why is there babies born with AIDS? How do you answer that?
Yeah, that's a very, very common question. And I also wrestle with that every now and then. Yeah. Because this whole idea of suffering is just something so like opposite to this whole assertion, right? That God is merciful, loving. So in my years of wrestling with this, and I don't think I've come to like a sure answer, just my own perspective lah. I think if you understand suffering as the here and now, then this God is just completely like a joke lah. Because he says he's loving, he's kind. But if you understand suffering as from a time perspective, that there is a larger purpose that's not bound by this current set of time that you're in, and that there is a future where one day there will be no suffering, then I think God's love in understanding that actually we are headed towards that future. In terms of a time point of view, God's loving purposes will be accomplished one day. And so you say, why then do you allow suffering now? Why don't you just get rid of it now, right? And in that sense, even though God is all-powerful, there's one thing that he puts his power under, and that is the free choice that he gives us. And that's amazing. Because if you think about it, right, love, right, is actually meant to be freely given. If I force you to love me, that's actually not love anymore.
But then if I don't love you, I go to hell. It's like kind of forcing though.
Well, I think if you think about it, that there's an opportunity for you to discover this creator and this God. And that opportunity has always been given.
So earlier on, he asked about whether all Christians go to heaven, right? So I have another one, which is, do good people who aren't Christians go to hell?
So if pardon me if I ask you the question, who then among us is really good? It's okay.
If you follow most of God's teachings or the church, and as it shares God's teachings, I try to be a good person. I turn the other cheek. I try to be a good neighbor. I try to do good. Try not to do as much bad as my life. I think that's generally what we can achieve as a human, and then be like, okay, I live a good life. Now I'm going to die. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to end up in damnation because I didn't call myself a person of this religion and follow their ritual to join it?
So as much as I answered your question, where do Christians all go to heaven? I asked same question. I don't know whether all non-Christians go to hell. Okay, let me explain why. Yes, from a labeling point of view, you're not a Christian. Well, okay, but whatever. But if you're a Christian, this is where you go. A lot of people just rest on the labels. But like I say, when you actually get there, I think only God in his mercy knows. And I have faith in God's mercy. I don't have faith in man's goodness, to be honest. So many supposedly good men in the world have failed us. Right? Suddenly, good, perfect person, political figure, church figure, and then scandal. The goodness of man, honestly, and I'm very, very circumspect about that. Really, ultimately, it's the mercy of God, lah. Jesus had this little encounter with this person who hung on him on the cross.
Yeah.
And that was like, this guy never believed in God or Jesus all his life. But right before at the cross, he said, "Remember me, Lord." And then Jesus said, "You are with me." At that moment. So my faith is that when a person passes, I really don't know. I will surrender the billions of people out there who may not have the label Christian, but I will surrender them to the mercies of God. I mean, the Bible somehow says that God's mercies and His marvels have been made known to us. So in my faith, I believe that God is seeking us and pursuing us. And therefore, really, it's up to His mercies and how we respond, right?
I wanted to know your view on the LGBTQ community.
I recognize that some people are born with same-sex attraction, but I also believe that in that sense, they don't have to act on those attractions. They can actually, for example, not choose to be in marriage. They can actually choose not to be in a relationship that has got that expression of LGBTQness. They can actually hold on to that attraction and find the grace, I believe, from God to be, in a sense, to walk a holy path. Yeah. I don't think that there are people that should be rejected, LGBTQ. I think they can be embraced and accepted while recognizing that we do hold different views and differences. But I think in terms of being treated with dignity and worth, I think they should be.
If let's say there's a lesbian couple in your church, and they come to you and they ask, like, they say that they want to get married and having children, then like...
Or the fact that they are simply together in a cell group. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold them the wedding or the marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's not consistent with the whole idea of my belief that a marriage is between one man and one woman. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I have to be upfront about it with a lesbian couple, honestly.
Not just your faith, I think quite a few faiths is that mankind is created in God's design, God's image. They are born this way. People who are queer are born in that way. They are born in God's design. So God made them in such a way. How they feel, romantically and sexually about people of our gender is how God made them to be. So are we then questioning whether something's wrong there? Is it that's God's design? Then should we not accept what their preferences are?
So actually, this is a very, very tough question. Yeah. So this links to the whole idea of what's God's design. It's God's design for me to act in whatever desire I want. Because at the core of it is what then is God's design and what then is our desire. So if you are born in a certain way, right? And I also don't understand and know why that has to happen. When we look at the Word of God and it says that God's design is for marriage between one man and woman, then the question now is, even though I feel that way and I have this desire, am I prepared to then accept God's design? God's design is not just how I desire. God's design is as laid out in His Word. And I, in a sense, trusting God's design will mean sometimes that we pull back on our desire. Let me give you another analogy. Maybe you think you're created with or highly wired for sex or with tendencies for sexual expression and sexual desire. But you know that that's not God's design.
How do I know that? I wouldn't know
I mean, His
that.
Word does tell us. Yeah, so His Word does tell us, for example, things like lust and greed. And these things are not part of His design. And they do come out of the very sinful dispositions that we have. In some sense, then do I then act on my lustful desires? Or do I then say, God, I trust your design? Now, I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not even saying it's easy. Yeah, because every day we are confronted with this question, your design or my desire? Therefore, as a journey of faith, the question is, who would you trust in that you would act on God's design and not desire?
When I see discussions on these, to me it's coming from the Gospels, the Word of God that was shared with mankind, right? It all derives back to this work, this written word, right? At some point, somebody put it down. I think the authorship, however, argued on the authenticity of it and like, is this really like the Word of God, or is it just some guys who at one point wrote down something and said, this is now my teaching, this is law, you should follow this as religion? Because there are things that predate Christianity, things that predate a lot of religions. Some versions of it treat sex as an expression of worship to God. God wants you to do it. So that was something that existed a long time ago. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, who had homosexuality as a big part of their culture and their society, even before Christianity and many other religions, many of the religions that are based off the Testaments were created. They were parts of it. They were not frowned upon. They were just accepted. So at one point, this religion started, like the written word, the Testaments came out, and then religion started coming up from there. So then from then on, we start assuming the heteronormativity is God's way. But prior to that wasn't really...
That's my fear, My fear is that, and I tell you, the conviction of the Muslims is what I admire. If you ask the Muslims, it's their sacred book, right? Is it written by man or God, right? They will tell you it's written by God. It can be a man's hand. God was holding his hand,
Right.
And with many of the other faith, my faith included, we'll be like, yeah, okay, maybe it's by God. Then, we will entertain the belief that, maybe it's like some corrupt man and got chance. I think that's our difference in our conviction in faith, especially like with me, right? I think my fear is also that like there are certain things in the Bible, for example, we see like God is in the desert for 49 days. And then the priest can come out and explain that, there's an expression. It's not exactly 49 days. It means that it's there for a long time, right? So maybe when in the book it says men and woman, right? It's just in general. Their power is not meant to be law. It's just like 99% of the time, men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. And us have taken that line and not giving it the same grace as 49 days.
Right.
And we took this as law, as mandate. That's my fear. And like when I die, go to heaven, and then we ask God, like, why are your rules so difficult? And he's like, no, it was not that. You all like took it. Like, what if it's like that?
Is there actually like a body of sorts, right? You all will come together and discuss these kind of things.
Update.
Yeah.
We do come together and look at doctrines and look at what's current in the world. And as you know, the church is split on this issue now. And that is back again to this interpretation of scripture and so on and so forth. I'm saying that we don't have the easy answer. Honestly, I do hold on to the traditional view that it's between one man and woman.
As with most religions.
Yeah, as with most. And for me, it's something that God said right at the beginning of time in the first book, the Genesis. And then it was repeated in the New Testament as well. And along the way in the Old. So it's quite a consistent message on this issue. And I hold to the validity of the way scriptures have been put together. And therefore, as a revelation of God's word.
Do you feel like increasingly the world has become so secular that most people, even people that go to church or temples or mosques, are almost living life thinking that it's almost 50-50 whether God exists?
Yes, I do think that there is a growing secularization of society. And really, there are many who come to faith still on the fence, questioning, seeking. It's almost a journey that they have to take, if I may say. And it's not always like 100%. All the way.
Now, if the world continues onto this trend, religion will die out, right? A big part of how a lot of us are Christians, Catholics, or Buddhists or whatnot is that we are born into a community of Christian, Catholic, Buddhist, Taoist, Muslim, right? And if that community gets smaller and smaller and ceases to exist, then so will religion and faith, no?
Well, even though the world gets more secular, we do see a rise in faith levels. For example, in overseas countries like UK, there's apparently recently a revival of young people returning back to faith. Right. So I can't say that the faith would die out. I believe that in each one of us, there's an innate desire for the eternal. So there is an innate desire to discover something beyond us, beyond what the world in its logic and science can provide. There is a deep search for it. And because of that there will be times where people will always be searching for something like faith. Yeah.
So in the spirit of this conversation, right, you think you can explain the difference between Christianity and Catholicism?
In summary, I think Catholicism comes from a certain traditional church that came as the institutionalization of the church, right? And the Roman Catholics believe, for example, in the ecclesiastical authority of the Pope. Okay. Sorry, big words.
What?
Ecclesiastical, which means church.
I don't even know how to Google it.
Just Pope can already.
Okay. Pope of the highest authority, right? And also, of course, the place of the saints, the view on communion. But primarily, it is the Pope, I feel, has a large place to play in this understanding of the authority of that one person. Protestantism, or the other side of the church, really is, there are authority figures, but it's not like a supreme authority. We have diversity in terms of expressions, whereas the Roman Catholics are quite universal in terms of how they express their services, their order. So if you go for one Roman Catholic service here, it's the same as a Roman Catholic service all over the world. It's universal.
Right. Sense the language.
Yeah. So that's that sense of unity. And whereas the Protestant church has got a certain diversity of expressions, one church can be very different from the other, but we hold on to some fundamental core beliefs now.
Got it.
So I think that essentially is the fundamental difference.
Yeah, I think what many people also would get wrong is that in Catholics worship Mother Mary, which is a myth like this. So what was your calling?
Okay, so let me explain. So actually I was in my third year in uni. I was in law school. We had this worship session when we were worshiping. In my mind's eye, I had this vision of God like calling me to take a leap off a cliff. In that vision, I literally took a leap off the cliff.
Right.
And I found this hand catching me, and I realized there's this sense of God telling me, I want you to step into full-time ministry. Maybe not now, but in time to come, that's where you need to go. So that's the start.
Did you talk to anyone about this?
Yeah, I talked to my mentors, I talked to my pastor, who encouraged me to continue seeking, pursuing this journey of discovery, right? And so I did. So I went into practice, and practice was good, and I kind of like forgot the call. No, actually, I didn't forget the call. I kind of ran away from the call.
Yeah.
But somehow, I think God didn't stop like pursuing me, and he just brought me back to this call. And so in like 5-6 years time after I graduated, I was in practice, he kind of called me back to this call. And I said, okay, God, I will respond.
Like another vision?
No, this time was not like a vision. This time was like during one of those worship sessions, and it was a quiet voice. So it was not a spectacular vision. It was a quiet voice that says, don't run anymore. And then I said, okay. And I recognized it was kind of from him. And I said, he knew I was running. So I said, okay, I won't run anymore. So that was my journey of preparation. And it took another 5 years to prepare. So all in all, it was like an 11-year journey before I finally applied to school to study.
But at that time, you were married already.
I was married, and then I had my son, along the way. So it's having a family. Yeah, it was a journey.
So at that point, like your wife is like, okay, my husband's a hotshot lawyer, correct? Then like how the conversation is like, I think I'm gonna be a pastor.
Yeah, right, bro. So it was okay. So you're absolutely right. I think when she married me, we didn't really talk a lot about like my full-time call. It was along the way that I said, hey, dear, I think I may have a call. It really took her a while to get used to the fact that she was like, I'm gonna be a pastor, right? Because that's not part of the deal.
But she's also a Christian.
Yeah, sure, she's a Christian. She's a Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, and the good thing is that both of us, in a sense, we believe in what God wants to do in our lives, and I'm so thankful that my wife is with me.
Yeah.
And in some ways, God also gave her some signs that it's going to be okay. My family is going to be provided for. And she then took this journey with me, and here we are. And she's like my best support, my partner in ministry.
So what were some of those conversations, and what were some of those signs?
We were looking at our financial future, because obviously a pay of a lawyer versus a pay of a pastor is quite different.
Depends. Some okay. Private jet one, I said, like, right?
I think we'll get there later, right? Okay. Yeah, okay. Some fly private jet, but the denomination I belong to, we don't fly private jets. Economic class is good enough. So basically, it's going to be a difference. It's going to be a change of lifestyle and expectations and all that. And one big sign was God's financial provision was a flat that we were staying at. It went en bloc. And so because of that, it provided some financial security for what lies ahead. And of course, my wife's faith, her own faith grew.
Yeah.
And because of that, she had the assurance that it's going to be all right. It really was all right. 14 years as a pastor.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Not a short change. It's been good.
Besides financial concern, like what were some of the other concerns that came up?
I think as a pastor, sacrifice is one thing. You must be ready. It's this idea that my husband, me, and my wife's husband is me, will always be available to a much larger group of people.
Right.
Because our work is 24/7.
Yeah.
When congregation members call, when they desperately need help, right? My role is really to be there. And
What do they desperately need help for?
So for example, recently I attended to this case, husband was just going to pass on. And so I went down, and it was like 10 plus at night. These things are not very frequent, but they do happen. The other thing is that you're a little bit more public. I pastor a very large church. Everywhere you go, people recognize you. Like you go on holiday, people also recognize you, right? So it's this sense of like, hey, you're no longer like private, but you are shared.
It's a bit like politics, actually.
I mean,
in
a way.
How do you know your calling is a calling from God as opposed to you just thinking it? So for example, right, for me, like when I attend mass, and then I feel like, I think I'll give a good sermon, right? But I'm married also, right? Then like to be a priest suddenly is like vow of celibacy. I ask myself, do I want that? Nah, not ready, right? I also have to leave my wife, and I'm like, love my wife. But sometimes I sit down there and thinking, like these thoughts in my head, is it God telling me I could do something? Am I supposed to go to the seminary and like, shall we do a storytelling workshop? Or I just thinking too much, my arrogance thinking that I'm better than the training facility.
So I think it's a process of testing that call in various alternative means and voices. So basically for me, when I had a call, I went to my pastor, I went to different leaders, I went to my family, my parents to give that counsel as to whether truly God is calling me. And I believe that we're not called on our own, but we're called in community. And God uses community to call us, to affirm us or to tell us, hey, you're not ready or you're not suitable. And along the checkpoints around the way, there are several like interviews, there's several processes, mentoring journeys that I take to get to this place of saying, the church affirming me and saying, okay, you're ready to go. We are very honest with candidates. We tell people, hey, you're not ready. You got to solve these issues in your life first. Get these things right first.
Such as what?
Such as even family. So for example, if your family is not with you, right? It's going to be very difficult for you. But we believe that having a family with you is part of the ministry. It's part of the work that you do. And so, hey, take your time. Because I think there's a time for everything. And we have people joining ministry like in their 50s, 40s. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you go through a right process.
For pastors, what's that training process like? How do you dip your toe into it to know that this is life now?
So if you feel a sense of call, you want to respond to it, you can always come to church to work, be a full-time staff. You test the call. You see, this is where you're supposed to be. After a few years, you feel, okay, I really want to go and study, which is what I did. So
Self-funded.
Sometimes the church can pay for you.
Oh, okay.
Then you go and study. And then in the midst of it all, through the process, you discern some more. You just check out your calling along the way.
Has anyone failed the call? Maybe they have the calling at first, but maybe after the training they feel like,
They got it wrong.
actually I'm not good at speaking or something like that, or like I just don't feel like this is the path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not really, for me, at least for many of us, it's not like if you are called to be a pastor, being the pastor is the outcome. Actually, it's the journey. Because it's in the process that you tend to grow, you tend to mature, you tend to be a better person. And I think that process is more important than the outcome. So yes, initially you feel the call, you go through all the checks, you go through all the experience, then you see how God leads along the way.
I have no idea what a pastor actually does. Like besides like giving like sermons, right? Is
Yeah.
it like what else?
Like blessing people.
Yeah, because
What's the day in the life?
you did mention that the job is quite like 24/7, right?
Yeah, it is. So obviously there's the Sunday part of the pastor, and the Sunday part is running the church service.
Yeah.
Be it preaching, be it praying, leading the service. Then there is the Monday to Saturday part. There is the planning. We meet our staff. We run the church like an organization as we need to. We look into the administration. There are leadership issues, there are staff issues. We meet people for pastoral counseling. We visit people in hospitals. We also need to spend time preparing for sermons. It doesn't just come like that. So it's really quite
I thought the whole thing was that God.
It's like MPS.
Yeah.
And then you need to run your own town council.
God really made you happy.
Then when is rest day? If Sunday is supposed to be rest day.
So my rest day is Friday. It's tomorrow, bro. After this, I need to rest.
I know this is very draining. Thank you very much for entertaining this.
It's great. Yeah.
Who determines you are ready to be a pastor?
Oh, okay. So we have a process. We have a board that comes together, a team of pastors, a group of pastors to come together.
But it's not a national body.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's an organizational body lah. So for us, it's the Trinity Annual Conference. Because the Methodist Church got 3 conferences. There's the Tamil Conference, Emmanuel Tamil Conference. There's a Chinese conference. There's a Trinity Annual Conference, which is like the English conference.
Right.
Historic. This is historic. When the Methodists came, they started churches along what we call language lines: Tamil, Mandarin, Chinese, and English.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so over time, these are the 3 conferences. So I'm under the Trinity Annual Conference, the English conference.
Okay.
And so I go through the process, which typically will be an interview by a board of pastors, and then subject to a second interview. And before that, the local church has to clear you. Yeah, the
So
church
they gotta
can-
nominate you.
Yeah, and they got to approve you.
Seconder lah.
They got to approve your application to be a pastor lah. So it's a detailed process. At any point you don't make it, then you don't make it lah. Or maybe
Is there some point where you just like as a normal man in training, just go and preach?
yeah,
And then
of
behind
course,
the,
of course.
for the principal at the back, it's like
You don't have to be a pastor to preach. There are so-called people who are in the marketplace. They we call them lay people. That means not full-time pastoral team members. They preach. We invite them to preach. We share the ministry together.
What happens at like the pastor interview? Like what they ask you?
They will definitely ask you about your call.
But what if the calling not like wow, the vision is
Oh
like,
no, it doesn't have to be dramatic or like vision-based. Actually, there's a big form you need to fill lah. And like a little paper you have to write. So that actually tells
The
your
EPRC.
testimony. Your testimony.
like essay like that.
Yeah,
John
something
cannot
like
stop
that.
finding parallels between the political
Yeah,
and the religious world.
What's the? I don't know. I always ask this question. What's the career progression of a pastor?
Well, you
Because
wanna
like, okay, like you know, my brother is a pastor in training.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Your brother is a pastor.
So then,
oh really?
yeah. So then I think he's about to start like the theology school and stuff like. So like, what is the progression like?
I don't think at least from my point of view, I don't see it as a career progression. I don't see that, from senior pastor, I must be district superintendent, I must be president. No, it's not how it works lah. The joy of just being able to do what I think God calls me to do, and to be a better pastor along the way. That is the progression. It's not like a career where there are rewards, and there are titles and there are recognitions of being a pastor. At least I don't go for that. I don't want to go for that because that's not how it really works.
No, but then how do you become a senior pastor? Is it just time?
Oh no, I mean, it's of course giftings, your ability, your capability, maybe the way you are wired to be able to lead bigger congregations. In a Trinity Annual Conference, there are churches that are very, very big, like Wesley, like 7,500 members, huge, big church. And then you have congregations like 300. Depending on different factors now, they will look at the ability, the suitability, the fit, like to a church in Wesley, and then they will then send you there.
But do you get to ask, like, let's say, whoever is more senior than you in your church, right? Unless you are the most lao jiao in your church.
No, I'm not the most lao jiao.
So do you get to ask for like a pay raise?
We have like a yearly increment, fixed increment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just go with it lah. There's no bonus, nothing. We just get the 13 month. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
The usual. So whatever the civil service declares,
here we go.
the pastors in the Methodist Church, at least for Trinity Annual Conference, we get that.
Right.
Wait, doesn't it depend on how much you're able to collect? Like churches, the money is from the people, the tithing, right?
Good question. I'm not paid by the local church. I'm paid by a central body. That's so even I have a large church, and of course the collection is big because we're very large. My salary is not dependent on how much I get. My salary is dependent on the scale that's determined by the conference level. So whether you are a pastor of a 300 church or a pastor of 1,000 church, you're paid according to the scale.
Interesting.
Right. That's in the Methodist denomination.
Yeah, it's a Methodist denomination. Of course, you're an independent church and you are a large independent church. Then whatever the congregation gets determines maybe the scale. I don't know because I'm not in independent church, right?
So during COVID, you all have to put a QR code.
Yeah.
Then people will just send the money.
Even now, we still use QR code.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I don't know. Last time mine is a red color,
Yeah,
like
must
wizard
put
head
in
upside
the-
down. Yeah.
I think one of the surprising things in
Velvet
Christian church for
one,
me was the communion was like Ribena and like biscuit, like Julie
mine
biscuit.
also Ribena.
No, yeah, but Catholic church is
Oh,
that
wow.
the thing.
shots,
Not much
yeah.
taste one. Then you don't get to drink the wine. Only when you marry or
Yeah.
become priest, you drink the wine.
No, then they upgrade. So last time is the you must own self pour, then I have to wash the cup, right? Then they upgrade to this like disposable
disposable.
pocket, right? So the top is the
Yeah.
the biscuit, then you open one
Like
side is
yen
the
yen.
what?
Yeah.
So COVID has changed a lot of these. So
Yeah.
now we
Yeah.
use the disposables, at least in Wesley, because it's a lot more hygienic.
Hygienic,
now.
Methodist and other denominations don't believe in there's the flesh and blood of Christ, right? That's a Catholic.
That's
thing,
Catholic,
right?
position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
it's not.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what's the word for it? Huh?
Transubstantiation.
Yes, that very long word.
Transubstantiation. The Methodists believe that the presence of God is really over the elements and a transforming presence, but it's not as if Christ's actual body or blood is there now, which is what the Catholics believe is. Yeah.
So why do you all give it out and still eat? It's just a snack.
Oh, no, it's not a snack. So remember talk about grace?
Yeah.
We believe that communion is what we call a means of God's grace coming to us. So there are different ways. So it's a sacrament, and the sacrament is always where God's grace comes to us to help us with our lives, to help us to live a life that pleases Him. That's what we believe in.
Right.
So communion is a means of God's grace.
Like what does that mean?
As we receive the elements, as we partake, as we remember what Christ has done for us, as we then now offer ourselves to serve God. We partake of the elements. God's presence is in the elements to empower us with His grace.
That's kind of the same thing, no?
It's like symbolic, is it? Like
So some churches believe it's symbolic, but I always more than symbolism. I always believe that God's grace, our presence is really over the elements.
Right. Oh,
Right.
I thought it's like feeding.
No, it's not feeding
It's the
per
very
se.
specific
Right.
act of the blood and body of Christ.
It's a
Okay,
sacred act. Yeah.
Right. Yo, I tell you, my friend, right? He's a pastor now. The guy used to be Satan one. He's the guy that like last time showed me to beat one. I might butcher this story, but it's quite recent. Basically, there was a man that like came into this restaurant. He's in Australia now, and then somebody like he feel God told. So when he tell me the story, I don't know the ending that time. Right? It's a bit like okay. So like God told him to buy that man a meal. Right, and so he invited that man to go and sit down and eat with his family. And then that man at first was a bit the one, then in the end, sit down and eat the family. Then after that, that man revealed to him that he was like a child molester or whatnot. And he just come out and he planned to shoot up the restaurant. Right?
But he didn't because this guy invited him to a meal.
This is like 3-4 months ago. Then I'm like, what
my
the heck?
God.
Or like, don't know, shoot up or like step everyone.
So he
or something.
prevented.
Yeah, but he didn't know. He's just like, he just want to invite the guy to eat.
Wow,
Like
that's
the
an amazing story. Wow.
That's very Final Destination also.
Yeah.
Now he has saved a lot of people from them also.
Shit.
Interesting way to end this episode. But thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
very much for the opportunity. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Is there a movie or a book you've watched recently that has made you re-examine your faith?
When life gives you tangerines.
Yo, that was so sad. What the hell? I only watched the last episode with my wife. I was surprised.
So I really like that one because it's a very real show, and I think that even though it does not refer to any faith per se, but that's a lot of stuff that it's about life, it's about the struggles, the pain, the suffering, the perseverance of human nature, and
It makes you call your mom.
yeah, man, it makes you appreciate my mom a lot more. Yeah.